This is Celine Dion, the biggest voice on the planet. And this is how the world almost lost her. Her own body, turning on the one gift that made her a legend. It all started with a dream. She got it, every last piece of it. But nobody told that little girl what it would cost her. The man who discovered her at 12 became the love of her life, and a question the world still won't ask out loud. A husband and a brother, gone in the same week.
My brother, who passed away of pretty much the same cancer as him, died on René's birthday. And I said to myself, for his birthday, my husband came and got my brother because my brother was too weak to fly on his own.
The most beautiful voice of a generation, locked inside a body at war with it. This is the story they leave out of the tribute reels. Before we go on, drop your favorite Celine Dion song in the comments. Tell me how old you were when Titanic hit theaters, and smash that like button. Let's go! The 14th child. Celine Marie Claudette Dion was born on the 30th of March 1968 in a small town called Charlemagne, just outside Montreal. And she wasn't an only child. She wasn't one of 3, 4, or 5. She was the 14th, the youngest of 14 children. 14. Let that sink in for a second. Her mother Therese raised 14 kids, and by the time Celine arrived, the family was stretched about as thin as a family can be. Money was tight, space was tighter, but there was one thing the Dions had in overflow: music. Her parents ran a tiny piano bar called Les Vieux Barils, the Old Barrel, and on weekends the whole clan performed there. This wasn't a family that sat around and watched television. This was a family that sang together, played together, filled the room with sound. And in the middle of it all was this tiny girl with a voice that had absolutely no business coming out of a body that small. By 5 years old, she was performing in that bar. By 12, she wasn't just singing other people's songs. She was writing her own.
My dream is to be international star.
And that's where the real story begins. Because at 12 years old, Celine, her mother, and one of her brothers wrote a song together, recorded a rough demo onto a kitchen cassette, and mailed it to the most important music manager in all of Quebec, a man called René Angélil. And what happens next sounds completely made up, but it's true. The man who mortgaged his house. René Angélil put the tape in. He listened to this unknown 12-year-old sing a song she'd written herself. And the story goes that he wept, openly. He was so instantly, completely convinced that he was hearing a future superstar that he made a decision most people would call insane. He mortgaged his own home to pay for her very first album.
We loved the same things. She wanted to be a star, I wanted her to be a star.
Think about the sheer weight of that. A grown man bet his house, his family's security, on a child from a town nobody outside Quebec had ever heard of. In 1981, that first album came out. It was called La Voix de Bon Dieu, the voice of God. And in Quebec, a star was born almost overnight. But here's what people forget. Celine Dion did not begin as the polished, glamorous icon you picture in your head. She was a French-speaking teenager with crooked teeth, heavy eyebrows, an old-fashioned image, and not one single word of English. If she was ever going to become that international star from the clip you saw at the very top, those exact words, the whole world, then everything about her was going to have to change. So it did. All of it. She stepped away from the spotlight to reinvent herself from the ground up. She had dental work done. She changed her hair, her clothes, her entire look. And most importantly of all, she learned English from scratch as a teenager, purely so that she could one day sing to the whole planet, instead of just one province of Canada. And in 1988, the first real crack of thunder. She entered the Eurovision Song Contest. Representing not Canada but Switzerland, and she won, by a single point. Suddenly, all of Europe was watching. The girl from Charlemagne was no longer a local secret.
1 point behind at 136. What a finish.
J'ai le grand plaisir de vous annoncer.
The love story nobody knew how to talk about. And now we have to talk about the part of this story that is beautiful and complicated, and that people genuinely still argue about to this day. Celine and René. Remember, René discovered Celine when she was 12 years old. For years, he was her manager, her mentor, the architect of her entire career. But somewhere along the way, as Celine grew into a young woman, that relationship changed. They fell in love, and this is where a lot of people get uneasy, understandably. He was 26 years older than her.
At what point did you realize that you were in love with this woman?
In 1988, it changed. And I realized that I felt good when I was with Celine. I was afraid of what, her parents would say, her family that put their trust in me, actually.
He had known her since she was a child. When the romance became public, it made a great many people deeply uncomfortable. The age gap, the history, the amount of power he held over her life and her career. Even Celine's own mother reportedly struggled to accept it at first. But here's what everyone who is close to them says. For Celine, René was the love of her life. Full stop. The only man she ever loved.
He's the only one that I will listen to without questioning anything. My eyes closed. He's my everything, so I don't care what people say, even if it's like, oh, she loves him too much, or she depends on him too much.
In 1994, they married in a lavish ceremony at Notre Dame Basilica in Montreal. She was 26, he was 52, and for the rest of his life, the two of them were almost never apart. You can hold your own opinion about how it began, but the devotion that came after it was, by every single account, absolutely real. And with René now in full control of both her career and her heart, Celine was about to hit a level of fame that almost no human being on earth ever reaches. The voice that conquered the world. The English albums started landing like bombs. The Power of Love. Because You Love Me. That soaring duet from Beauty and the Beast that won her an Academy Award. All through the mid-90s, Celine Dion wasn't merely successful, she was everywhere. Radio, television, every award show. That enormous, controlled, emotional voice became the default sound of the power ballad itself. And then came the iceberg.
Is there anyone there?
Yes, what do you see?
Iceberg, right ahead!
Thank you.
In 1997, a director named James Cameron made a film about a sinking ship, and the theme song went to Celine Dion. Here's the funny part, she almost didn't record it. By some accounts, she wasn't even sure about the song at first. She sang the demo once as a favor, barely warmed up, and that rough first-take version is essentially what ended up carrying the entire film.
And he went to the piano and he started to play, and he was okay, but I couldn't hear the song well because the piano, he plays well, but I couldn't get the song right, and I looked at René in the back like, I kind of want to do that song. And René went to see James and he said, listen, you know what we're going to do? Let's do a demo, and in a couple of days, we're going to go to Los Angeles, and Celine's going to put her voice on the demo just to give it a try and see if she feels it, if it's good. Oh, he said, thank you very much, great, but don't say a word. I said, no, promise, and we're not going to say a word.
My Heart Will Go On did not just become a hit, it became a phenomenon. #1 in country after country after country. An Academy Award, multiple Grammys, including Record of the Year. It transformed Celine Dion from a huge star into a global institution. For an entire generation of people, maybe including you watching this right now, that song is permanently welded to a specific memory. A movie theater, a first heartbreak, a slow dance at a school gym, a single moment frozen in time. She had done it, the exact thing she promised as a skinny teenager. International star, the whole world, and it should have been the happy ending. It wasn't the ending at all. The years of quiet struggle. For a while, life looked exactly like a fairy tale. In 2003, she launched a Las Vegas residency that ran for years and turned her into one of the highest-earning performers alive. She built a marriage, a home, an empire. But behind the curtain, she and René were quietly fighting a much more private battle. They desperately wanted children, and it did not come easily. Celine went through round after round after round of fertility treatment. Years of it, much of it playing out painfully in public.
2 years we've been trying to have a child. It doesn't work.
Have you ever considered the fact that because you're on tour 200 days a year, that's contributing to this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If I can't get pregnant today, I'm sure because I'm constantly working. If ever I get pregnant, if ever I have the chance of being pregnant, I'll stop. No doubt.
Finally, in 2001, their first son, René Charles, was born. And in 2010, after even more treatment, she gave birth to twin boys, Nelson and Eddie. 3 sons, a career at its absolute peak. From the outside, it looked like a woman who quite literally had everything. And then the shadow that had been waiting in the wings this whole time finally stepped forward. René was diagnosed with throat cancer. The week that broke her. René's battle with throat cancer stretched on for years. He fought it, went into remission, and then it came back.
It was December 17th, and I will never forget because it was our wedding anniversary. And I was rehearsing for The Voice, and after the rehearsal, I went back in my dressing room and I saw him looking pretty devastated and in shock. And I was like, what's going on? And he sat down and he said, I have cancer again. The doctor just called me and I have cancer again. And at that moment, honestly, my heart started to beat faster, but my body shut off. And I was like, I'm gonna go put makeup on and I'm gonna go sing Incredible and I'm gonna forget how I feel right now.
And through all of it, Celine kept performing. Partly because he wanted her to, and partly because performing was the only language she had ever fully spoken. But everyone around them could see what was coming. On the 14th of January 2016, René Angélil died at their home near Las Vegas. He was 73 years old. The man who had wept over a child's cassette tape, who bet his house on her, who built her, married her, and loved her for decades, was gone. And then, just 2 days later, the truly unthinkable. On the 16th of January, 48 hours after she lost her husband, Celine's brother Daniel died of cancer.
My brother, who passed away of this pretty much the same cancer as him, died on René's birthday. And I said to myself, for his birthday, my husband came and got my brother because my brother was too weak to fly on his own.
The very same disease. He was 59. In the space of 2 days, Celine Dion lost both of them. And she said something afterward that genuinely stays with you. That's how she survived it. She took the single worst week of her life and turned it into an image of the 2 men she loved most walking out of the world together. And then, barely a month later, she went back on stage, back to Vegas, back to work. A widow, with 3 young children at home, singing love songs to rooms full of strangers every single night. People called it strength, and it was. But it was also a woman who had absolutely nowhere else to put her grief. And little did anyone watching know, her own body was about to become the next battle. Something is wrong. For years, fans had been noticing small things. Canceled shows, vague explanations, muscle spasms. A voice that every so often simply didn't do what it used to do. Celine kept touring, kept pushing, kept smiling, but something was clearly seriously wrong. And nobody, not even her own doctors, could figure out what it was. She would later admit that she had been hiding it for a long, long time. She'd been having these terrifying episodes where her muscles would seize and lock, where her body would contort, where she couldn't control her own movements. She described the spasms in her throat as feeling like someone was strangling her, like a hand pushing directly on her vocal cords, the one instrument her entire life had been built around.
When I try to breathe, my lungs are fine. It's what's in front of my lungs that's so rigid because of stiff person syndrome that it's like I know you. That's what happens. It's like I know what I want to do, and now you can show me, yeah. And that's what happens, and it's very difficult for me to hear that and to show this to you.
Just imagine that particular terror. The single thing that made you who you are, your voice, slowly slipping out of your own control, and not one person on earth able to tell you why. And then in 2022, she finally got her answer. And the answer was almost unbelievably rare. In December of 2022, Celine Dion posted a video to her fans, and she was crying. She told them she had been diagnosed with something called stiff person syndrome.
I've been dealing with problems with my health for a long time. And it's been really difficult for me to face these challenges and to talk about everything that I've been going through. Recently, I've been diagnosed with a very rare neurological disorder called stiff person syndrome.
Here's what that actually means. Stiff person syndrome is a neurological disorder so rare that it affects roughly 1 in a million people. 1 in a million. It's an autoimmune condition, which means the body essentially begins attacking itself, and it causes progressive muscle stiffness along with violent, uncontrollable spasms. Those spasms can be so severe that they can dislocate joints, and in some cases even break bones. There's no cure, and with a cruelty that's almost hard to believe, for a singer, it can seize up the exact muscles you need in order to breathe and to sing.
So you can get these voice changes, you can difficulty projecting and sustaining notes, you have spasms while even singing, even sudden movements, so therefore she had to cancel the tour based on these painful spasms.
Suddenly everything made sense. The cancellations, the years of hiding, the strangling feeling in her throat. This was the thing that had been stalking her the entire time. And this is the footage you saw at the very start of the video. In her 2024 documentary I Am Celine Dion, she did something that almost no superstar on this planet would ever allow. She let the cameras keep rolling during a full spasm episode. Her body rigid, frozen, tears streaming down the side of her face while her team held her and simply waited for it to pass. It's one of the rawest, most vulnerable things a global icon has ever chosen to show the public. She could have hidden it forever. Instead, she showed the entire world exactly what she was fighting, specifically so that other people living with this disease would feel a little less alone. And that takes a kind of courage that has nothing at all to do with hitting high notes. The comeback nobody thought they'd see. And then something happened that made the entire world hold its breath. The 2024 Paris Olympics, the opening ceremony, billions of people watching around the globe. And at the very end of the night, a single light flickers on near the top of the Eiffel Tower. And there she is, Celine Dion, in a shimmering gown, standing on the most famous monument in the entire world, singing Edith Piaf's Hymn à l'amour, a French song about a love that outlasts absolutely everything.
Mon amour, crois-tu qu'on sait?
It was her first major performance since the diagnosis. After years of silence, after the spasms, after all that grief, after the whole world had quietly started to wonder whether she would ever sing in public again, she stood on the Eiffel Tower and she delivered. People wept. Other artists wept. For a lot of people, it was the single most emotional moment of those entire games. And she has not stopped there. In the time since, she's shared videos looking healthy, laughing, completely composed, a whole world away from that therapy table. She's spoken about a demanding daily treatment regimen, a specialized medical team, and a body that she's slowly, stubbornly reclaiming inch by inch. And in the spring of 2026, on her birthday, she announced the one thing her fans had been quietly praying for. She's returning to the stage. A run of shows in Paris. Not a farewell tour, a comeback.
Over these last few years, every day that's gone by, I've felt your prayers and support, your kindness and love. Even in my most difficult times, you were there for me. You've helped me in ways that I can't even describe, and I'm truly so fortunate to have your support.
So let's go all the way back to that girl, the skinny teenager with the big teeth, and the even bigger dream, staring down a camera and calmly telling the world that she was going to be an international star. She got the dream, every single piece of it. But nobody ever warned her what the dream was going to cost her. The reinvention, the complicated love, the double funeral inside a single week, a body that turned against the one gift that made her who she is. And yet here's the thing about Celine Dion. Every single time life put her on that table, frozen, finished, counted out, she found a way to stand back up and sing anyway. That's not a fairy tale. That's something far better than a fairy tale. That's a real one. If this story moved you even a little, do me one favor. Hit that like button and subscribe, because on this channel, we tell the real stories behind the icons you grew up with. And then tell me down in the comments, after everything you just heard, what does Celine Dion's voice mean to you now? I'll see you guys in the next one.